that, basically, if you don't like it, too bad.
Yeah. Too bad for you. You're living next to, I guess there's a river separating Canada and the U.S. over there in Detroit. I was there a couple years ago filming some of the despair in that city, and then not too long ago interviewing Kurt Haskell, who saw the Unabomber, the underwear bomber, get on the plane back in Schiphol Airport.
Right.
Let's go to the TSA, which is the reason now why we have them everywhere, is because of the underwear bomber. You also saw TSA agents, including some of them that were armed, which is pretty new. I didn't know they were allowed to be armed. So did you encounter them? Did you talk to them? What happened?
Correct. So most TSA screeners are not permitted to be armed. They're not law enforcement officers, the kind that you see in the airport with the blue uniform. They're not police. They don't carry guns. But the TSA is allowed to train and to have law enforcement officers, rather, that they call TSA inspectors. And these men essentially wander around carrying firearms. And, you know, ostensibly tell me that they were looking at the train tracks that are by the festival. But again, that's the rub, is that, you know, the Transportation Security Administration says they can do anything transportation related. But where is there not something transportation related? And same with Border Patrol. They say they can patrol within 100 miles of the border. But nearly every major city in the U.S. is within 100 miles of the border, including the entire state of Florida. So it's essentially just kind of another way of getting around things by creating ridiculous exceptions that apply as the rule.
Sure, walking can be transportation. You know, your feet are transportation devices. Your shoes are transportation implements. So maybe we need the TSA sniffing our shoes to see if we have any bomb parts or other such incendiary devices in them. I think it's crazy. Did you talk to anybody with this Detroit Music Festival? Did they know that they were going to have these types of guys there, and did they have their own private security there on hand?
You know, they had their own private security, and there were local police there as well. I think the idea is that the festival is held on park grounds, and the city of Detroit, being in its current state, basically takes all the help it can get. So they essentially give the TSA or the Customs or whatever federal agents want to come free reign over the city to go wherever they want. That doesn't mean that this has to be that way. So I am definitely contacting the festival organizers and seeing what we can do to prevent this from happening next year. You know, just like any other kind of private property or private event, the event organizers should be able to exclude whoever they want, absent any kind of law enforcement emergency. And I think they need to do so. I don't think that a bunch of federal agents is what people want when they're having a good time.
No, we see enough of those guys at the airport digging through our luggage and asking us a bunch of questions and treating us like criminals. So I don't think we need them at our music festivals. I was at a festival this weekend as well, and we didn't have any cops. There was 2 sheriff's deputies on the outside of the gate. Never saw them inside. Never saw any uniformed police officer other than what they call rangers walking around. And they basically just are there to help conflict resolution and provide first aid and directions if you need them. And, you know, that's what it should be, because it's called personal responsibility, and that's the code that we should be living by in order to change the way we live now, which is this idea that the government has to carry us around on their back and cradle us from cradle to grave.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's move on. You actually went to D.C. When was that, last week?
Correct. I was in D.C. last Monday and Tuesday.
Okay. And you actually attended the TSA's Aviation Security Advisory Committee's public meeting. Did they strip search you on the way in?
No, the only thing reminiscent of the actual TSA is they had those little mats with the feet drawn on them so that you can stand on them when they pat you down. But they had private security guards. They had the little handheld metal detection wands, which the TSA has gotten rid of in favor of the pat downs. So it was a highly secure building, I would say, but none of the stuff they subject us to at the airports to get in.
Right. And so what happened during your presentation? Who was there? Who was in attendance? And what actually did you present?
So I actually had three things to do in D.C. The first was the TSA's Aviation Security Advisory Committee meeting, which was on TSA headquarters, and now for the first time actually consists solely of industry representatives of industry stakeholders such as airlines and pilots associations and so forth. And this committee is tasked with advising the TSA on a range of issues as to what they should be doing and how they should be implementing it. Administrator Pistol came for about 5 minutes to give his own speech, but then suddenly left, as he's done actually with every ASAC meeting that I've seen, basically ignoring the committee and not giving the time of day to it. So at the end of the meeting, they're required by law or by regulation to have open comment. So there were actually a few of us, not just me, that were able to give comment and to share that we as the traveling public expect this committee, that is, the people that we're paying to travel, to take action on these privacy issues, on the invasiveness of the TSA.
And did you actually show them the shirt and video that you were able to sneak the metal object past the TSA screening device?
Apparently they had all actually seen it. I did mention it. I had several come up to me saying that they did see the video.
Okay.
I also had a second presentation the next day, which was directed at Congress to a bunch of staffers in the House. And during that, we did kind of go through the video and explain to Congress exactly what kind of flaws we've seen, both the one that was in my video and others. The scanners have a plethora of flaws. There are so many ways to defeat them that it's astounding. And the same just does not exist with the metal detector. If you take a piece of metal through a metal detector, it'll beep every time. Doesn't matter what you case it in, surround it with, where you put it on your body, it will beep every time. The same can't be said of these new body scanners.
Right, but then that doesn't, but then it won't catch those bombs that are sewn into the breasts or the stomach of all these terrorists that are just waiting to come kill us through the airline industry.
Right, and if those do actually exist, we've actually not seen someone depart from a U.S. airport with explosives with the intent of blowing up a plane since the 60s. But if these people do exist, there are other ways to catch them. Number one on the list is bomb-sniffing dogs. Number two are trace detection machines, either the little swab things that they have now or those puffer machines that they used to have that they got rid of because they were poorly manufactured and started to break. The bottom line is if you have a bomb in your underwear, you have a whole bunch of trace residue all over your body, and that can be detected, and it doesn't require a machine that takes your clothes off.
Exactly. And dogs don't cost nearly as much as these TSA machines or having all those TSA screeners yelling at you. In fact, I think someone did a study, and I think one dog could replace all those machines in there and screen people in half the time. So,
absolutely not. I mean, if you can imagine a line full of 100 people and a dog passing by, how long it would take the dog to walk by 100 people, it would be several seconds.
Yeah.
Compared to these body scanners that take about 15 seconds if there's no anomaly, but 40% of the time they need to pat you down anyway. So that's why in a lot of airports you'll see that they're still using the metal detectors for most people. And roughly, depending on the airport, maybe 10 to 50% of people end up going through the body scanners, even if they're fully equipped with them. They just take so long that they aren't an effective solution.
Yeah, I actually shot video myself of this. Every time I go to the airport, I always stop and check my watch for about 35 to 45 seconds while I'm filming. And, I've on many occasions have witnessed people coming out of the scanners, and then they get patted down, and it happens just about every time I've flown. And once they, it doesn't matter. You've gone through the scanner. Here, now I'm going to fill you up. And they'd give them just as much of a pat down as you get if you were not going to go through the scanner. So it's a big lie that they tell you that those pat downs are going to go away with the scanners.
Right. So one of the things that we can all do to try and limit the amount of body scanners they can do is to opt out in the first place. If you're going to have a 40% chance they're going to touch you anyway, you might as well just go up and say, I opt out, and they'll pat you down. These full pat downs that they do take, by the time they actually move you and explain the process and so forth, about 3 to 5 minutes, which isn't enough to cause you to miss your flight, but it's enough to make it so that the TSA can't continue to do it. The TSA has approximately 7 to 10 seconds to screen every passenger in order for there to not be a delay and not to be a backup. So if even 3, 4, 5% of passengers asked to opt out, essentially the machines would have to be stopped using. They'd have to stop using all the machines, they'd have to stop the pat-downs, and they'd have to go back to the metal detectors.
That would be great. I can't wait for that. And also, you put a petition into the Supreme Court Let's tell us about that, and tell us about the weird requirements that they made you go through in order to get that petition submitted.
That's correct. So I sued the TSA about a year and a half ago when these body scanners were moved to primary in November of 2010. And so far, courts have refused to hear it because there's a law that essentially says that anything the TSA orders needs to be appealed in the courts of appeals and can't be subject to a district court trial. District court is the trial court that has all the juries, discovery, and witness stands, and all that kind of stuff. So essentially, the law would be forcing me to go into an appeals court where I'd have no right to a trial by jury, where I'd have no right to discovery, to gather and present evidence, or present witnesses, essentially limiting due process. So I'm challenging the constitutionality of that, and that went up to the Supreme Court. I filed that on Tuesday. And the following requirements for the Supreme Court are actually pretty interesting. It seems random and arbitrary. To start, the paper that you use has to be 6 1/8 inch by 9 1/4 inches, so no 8.5 by 11 paper. It has to be bound in a booklet. They specify the exact font you're supposed to use, the margins, the space between the lines, and even the thickness of the paper. I have to use exactly 60-pound paper in order for it to pass their inspection. And then when I got to the courthouse to drop off the documents, they actually have an interesting method of dropping them off, which is you go out to the back of the courthouse to the security guard stand, which will hand you a garbage bag, and you place your documents in the garbage bag and just leave it there. I guess the idea is that since they require so many copies of everything, 40 copies in fact, people come up with giant boxes of paper, and I guess there's some kind of security risk there, so they screen them out back in garbage bags beforehand. But it just kind of seemed like a bad symbol for justice to place documents in a garbage bag and leave them in back.
Here's your garbage bag, kid. Don't worry, we're going to take care of it. Trust us.
Yeah.
Really makes you feel like it's the people's court and not the corporation's court and the corporate court that I think it's now become.
It is interesting, but luckily today I was notified by the Supreme Court that they did scan the garbage bag and I guess opened it up and accepted the petition, so we're now on the docket.
Interesting. And do you know when you're going to hear anything on that?
Well, the TSA or the government, the Solicitor General, and the Attorney General's office will have a chance to respond. And this is essentially just a petition to ask the court to hear it. So that the court, based on my petition and their response, is going to decide whether or not they should actually look at the case. And if they do, which they do for about 3% of cases, so the odds aren't so good, then there'll be more briefing, there'll be oral arguments, and it'll be a big thing.
Wow. Well, let's hope they decide to take it, and let's hope we can get the TSA out of our pants, like it says in your blog. One man fighting the TSA is John Corbett. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Rob.
All right. Hey, it's one person. You could do it too. Just start a blog and start making videos. That's really all it takes. And, you know, we saw his video. We thought it was amazing and got him on the show, and now he's, you know, going up to the Supreme Court, talking to people like John Pistol, even though John Pistol is probably not going to listen to him. That's all the show we have today. If you want more info, check it out at INFOWARS.com. Check out our Bilderberg link. We've got plenty of live stuff on there. Become a member of Planet InfoWars. That's our new social network. It's in beta right now, but we've got a whole Bilderberg group in there going. It's Bilderberg for the rest of the week and into next week. So keep watching, keep checking out the site. Check out the new drones shot down over America. It's either drone shot down over America or drone shot down over Texas. It's become viral. And we will see you tomorrow night. Mike Adams will be hosting the InfoWars Nightly News, and we will see you next time.